Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm nervous. This is the second time only in my life that I've spoken
Doing a good job.
in front of people, so bear with me. I had an event. I arrived in Yucca Valley 4 or 5 days ago, 3 days ago, I don't know, not too long ago, from Eugene, Oregon, my home. And I came prepared. I had a speech all written. And for some reason, last night, I began picking at it. I began tearing it apart and recreating. And I wasn't really sure what that was all about. I stayed up a lot of the night last night. And this morning, Brad gave me an affirmation, and I finally understood what was going on last night. So what he said was, he did an affirmation saying, you hold within you everything you need to know. You're going to do fine. You're going to move through your heart and speak through your heart. And what I understood was I had gotten too much into my head and too far away from my heart. So I'm going to dispense with a lot of what I wrote last night. So if it feels a little disjointed, forgive me. I'm taking a huge risk here. And so I'm going to trust that I have the stories and that they'll come at the right time. I really appreciated Cindy's talk this morning about, as we grow older, how we view the world differently, and we bring different parts of ourselves. We start to gain a certain amount of wisdom, and hopefully, and our place in the world shifts a little bit towards guiding each other, guiding future generations. I have been asking the question for a long time, how can I be a good ancestor? Because in Native American tradition, for example, it's common to know, to carry the stories of 7 generations in the past and 7 generations to the future. That's a long time. That's a lot of wisdom. And for me, I feel like to be a good ancestor, I have to bring forth the story and assist people around me to help rise up in joy, in happiness, and in beauty that surrounds us. So I want to shine a little light on this concept of what a regenerative future is, and then share a few stories. So as we approach the solstice today, when darkness begins to turn to light, we reaffirm that the laws of nature will prevail. The earth will travel around the sun once again in a predictable fashion, and we can count on that. She will adapt and come back to balance in spite of the ways that we humans abuse the earth. Nature never makes mistakes. We do. The earth is homeschooling us in the interconnectedness of all aspects of life. We belong to nature. Nature does not belong to us. Can we count on us, Homo sapiens, the wise apes, to move toward the light? We've severed our vital connections between human beings and nature, and we've severed connections between and within nature itself. We've severed connections between people, religions, governments, commerce. Can we get back to the garden? Because that's what it's going to take. I've been a climate activist. I've been an activist my entire life, working towards social justice and equity and preserving the gifts that we've been given on this earth. And suddenly, things seem to be shifting for me. It's not so much about being in the streets, it's not so much about trying to convince people about what we should do to save the beauty of this planet 7 generations in the future. The only thing we can really do in my 70 years on this earth, I'm starting to understand, is enter whatever space we're in fully and completely and from a place of love. What I know as a climate activist is that we are in dire straits and several things need to happen, and they're not happening very quickly. There needs to be a huge shift in our consciousness. There needs to be a huge shift. Is this working? Yeah. Okay. I'm seeing sign language out there. There needs to be a huge shift of us reaching out hands to support one another, to move within, back to the garden and within nature. I'm just going to share with you, Paul Hawken is a hero of mine. He's an environmentalist and an activist and a writer. And he says this about the concept of regeneration. This is a watershed moment in history. The heating planet is our commons. It holds us. To address and reverse the climate crisis requires connections and reciprocity. It calls for us moving out of our comfort zone to find a depth of courage that we may never have known before. It doesn't mean being right in a way that makes others wrong. It means listening intensely and respectfully, stitching together the broken strands that separate us from life and from one another. It means neither hope nor despair. It is action that is courageous and fearless. We've created an astonishing moment of truth. The climate crisis is not a science problem, it's a human problem. The ultimate power to change the world does not reside in technologies. It relies on reverence, respect, and compassion for ourselves, for all people, for all life. This is regeneration. When we put all that we do in the context of life and promoting life, promoting beauty, we will succeed. He further says we're going to engage the bulk, if we're going to engage the bulk of humanity to end the climate crisis, the way we do it is counterintuitive. To reverse global warming requires us to address current human needs, not an imagined dystopian future. If we want the attention of humanity, humanity needs to feel it is getting attention. Are we attending to each other? It's at the basis, it's gotta be at the basis of all we do. If we want to save the world from global warming, we need to create a world worth saving, worth working hard to preserve. The most complex, radical climate technologies on the earth are the mind, the brain, and the heart, not a solar panel. I've spent years promoting solar, wind, clean energy, and now my journey is to go inside, to go deep, to find a place of peace and place of joy that is genuine and authentic, and hope that the ripples spread out from there. Recently, I live in Eugene, and there's a tofu store that a manufacturer that's been there for 50 years. And it started with a bunch of old hippies in the 50s, late 50s, early 60s, and it's still there. And it's very old-fashioned. They produce stuff that goes all over Oregon and California, all over the Northwest. But they have a little store that's attached to the warehouse. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays, you can go there and you can get seconds of tempeh and tofu. And so I often do that. And one day I went and I asked for the tofu. You can get a slab like this for $10, which is great. So I asked for the tofu. It's a young woman who I've never seen before, and she wraps it up and she gives it to me. And she says, that'll be $10, please. And I realize that I see a sign, we only take cash, no credit, no checks. And so I had no cash. And so I said, I'm really sorry I've put you to this inconvenience. I don't have any cash. So I could maybe arrange to come back later and pick it up. And she was kind of, she didn't know what to do. She was young, she was inexperienced. And so she turns to the man in the back of the room and she says, hey, Joe, this woman doesn't have any money. And he said, well, just give her the tofu. And she looked startled. She looked, you know, it hadn't occurred to her to just give me the tofu. And so I said, how? And I stuck my head in the window and I said, I just want to say that I so much appreciate you extending that level of trust to me. And I value that. And you better believe I will come back with my $10. So several weeks passed and I'd forgotten about it. And then one day I was driving by and there was servada tofu. So I went in and I ordered a thing of tofu. And I gave the same girl, gave her the $20 for last week's tofu and this week's. And she looked confused again. And I said, so this is for the tofu that I got, that you gave to me, that you offered me, that you trusted me with a couple weeks ago. And she kind of thought for a minute and she said, I remember you. I remember you. You came back. She was surprised. It made me feel so sad that she was surprised. And so I said, well, of course I came back. And what I understood in that moment was, here's a young girl who next time won't have to ask Joe if it's okay to extend a level of trust to another human being. And that she will tell this story, and that the ripples go out from there. Ripples of kindness, ripples of generosity, ripples of trust. So I want to talk a little bit about the concept of regeneration has really changed the way that I see my political work in the world. I'm going local. I'm going to my yard. So I live in downtown Eugene. I have a big double lot. And in the last 2 years, I've decided that the best thing I could do to contribute to a healthy community and a healthy body is to create a community garden. And so that's what I've done. I couldn't do it alone, so I called out to the universe, please, I need someone to help me. People arrived. A young woman named Sky, who used to work at another community garden, who knows gardening. I know nothing. I used to think of myself as not having green thumbs, and it wasn't until I stuck my thumbs into the earth and felt the richness of that soil that I could call myself a gardener. So my vision for my land is a regenerative one. It is about creating, I've taken out all of the plants, all of the grass, everything, every spare place in the yard is meant for food, for the cleanest, most nutritious most beautiful food that I can share with the people on my property, and I can also share with my community. And we can continue to build community. I know we need more people, and so I'm in the process of calling in those people. And I know they'll arrive because I'm starting to put my faith in tapping into that universal knowledge and believing that this project is worthy of my attention, worthy of the attention of the people that will be drawn to this place. So I have experienced the most joy in my garden in the last year. It was a productive garden. We had baskets and baskets of food that was so unlike the food that I've ever gotten anywhere, because it would be picked from the vine and eaten and cooked. And I made a promise to myself that I would not waste any of it. Statistics, or they say that the number 3 largest problem in terms of climate, a warming climate, is food waste.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing? It's food waste. And it's from the beginning of the time that seeds are gathered and planted, and food that doesn't get harvested, not just in big agriculture, everywhere. When it gets to the store, if it's not perfect, it gets put aside. It gets thrown away, essentially. Anyway, so I found I'm not going to waste anything. Boy, has that changed how I walk into my kitchen and what I choose to cook. And so it's an adventure. It brings me so much joy. So I know I've learned this year that you don't feed plants. I always thought, oh, I'll put a little fertilizer on this plant, and that'll do it. No, we feed the soil. It's the nutrients, it's all of those microorganisms that rest in the soil, the worms, the nematodes, all of this network, this micro network that supports the plants, that support me, that supports my community. And when I go into a box store and I see rows and rows, you smell it before you get to the rows and rows of fertilizer, of chemicals that you can use to put on your garden. Or what if you build the garden soil by yourself? And so that's what I've chosen to do. So I do vermiculture. I raise worms, and they are so wonderful. I have 3 worm boxes. They're this high, and I have to rotate them, but all of the compost goes into these worm boxes, and within a week at the bottom is the perfect soil. And then I can mix it with leaf, mulch, or whatever, but I don't have to go to the store and buy those chemicals. They are here for the taking, and we just have to appreciate those worms and all of those things that break down soil. So regeneration is promoting generations of insects and fungi and mosses and whatever it is that in the natural course of things supports this life. We have separated ourselves from nature. I feel that separateness, especially now, especially because of COVID. And so it feels like we really need to get back to the garden. There's so much to learn there. And we, as humans, have had dominion. If you look at Genesis, the book of Genesis in the Bible, it tells human beings to go forth and take whatever we want. And wouldn't it be so much better if we are always asking permission of this network of life that supports us? So, I did kind of go off. I'm gonna just read one other little thing. This is a poem by Rumi, sorry. Today, like every other day, we wake up empty and frightened. Don't open the door to the study and begin reading. It's just another way to hide. Take down a musical instrument, he says. Let the beauty of what we love be what we do. There are hundreds of ways to kneel and kiss the ground. I love this poem because I see that instead of reaching, if instead of reaching for my instrument for this creative expression, if I reach instead for the computer or the book or the knowledge from somewhere else, I've skipped a vital piece of bringing my authentic joy and my authentic gift to the world. So I love this line, let the beauty of what we love be what we do. There are hundreds of ways to kneel and kiss the ground. I think that's an invitation for each one of us to find that thing that we love. For me right now, it's the soil, you know, it's the bees, it's what nurtures us. But each one of us has that thing inside of us that is different and unique to each one of us. No one else has those things within them. And so it's so important that we find, that we dig under any level of fear that we have and rest in that place of knowing that we have everything we need. So it's a time to sit, to be still and listen. We can do that with meditating. We can do that by just sitting quietly in nature, reconnecting with nature. Now I think my time is up. That went fast. Do I have time to just read this poem?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a poem called Testimony by Rebecca Baggett. She wrote it for her daughters. So I think it's important to acknowledge that we are in a very delicate time on this planet, and that we do need to change our behaviors. And we do need to acknowledge what is really happening in the world, but always rest in the joy of living. She says, I want to tell you that the world is still beautiful. I tell you that despite children raped on city streets, shot down in schoolrooms, despite the slow poisons seeping from old and hidden sins into our air, soil, water, despite the thinning film that encloses our aching world, despite my own terror and despair. I want you to know that spring is no small thing, that the tender grasses curling like a baby's fine hairs around your fingers are a reoccurring miracle. I want to tell you that the river rocks shine like God, that the crisp voices of the orange and gold October leaves are laughing at death. I want to remind you to look beneath the grass to note the fragile hieroglyphs of any ant, snail, or beetle. I want you to understand that you are no more and no less necessary than the brown recluse, the ruby-throated hummingbird, the humpback whale. I want to say, like Neruda, that I am waiting for a great and common tenderness, that I still believe we are capable of attention, that anyone who notices the world must want to save him. Thank you.